I did the impossible. I have defeated every single one of Cuphead's DLC bosses, minus the secret boss, in expert mode without jumping a single time. And I'll show you how I did it. The first boss we're gonna tackle is Moonshine Mob. And let me tell you, this boss was probably the easiest to deal with because throughout this entire fight, you can basically just stand at the bottom layer and shoot while also dodging all the projectiles. But here's the thing about this no jumping challenge. You can basically call this a no hit challenge until the final phase, because for every boss in this challenge, you cannot get hit in the first few phases of the fight in order to beat them. Moonshine Mob is a small exception, but for every other boss fight in this challenge, it is essential that you do not get hit. The only real difficult part about Moonshine Mob is the last phase, mostly because of the clutter that the anteater spits out from time to time. Since I used the crack shot for the entirety of the third phase, I would mostly only have to be dodging one at a time, but at some points there would be up to two of them on screen at a time, which makes them even harder to dodge, which is why you need to have as much health as possible to be able to finish the boss alive. Also, I forgot to mention this. Miss Chalice is strongly recommended for this challenge because of her dash parry, since in expert mode, these bosses will have a hell of a lot more projectiles coming your way compared to regular, and you need as many parries as you can to use your super art, and also the fact that she was literally made to be played for this DLC. I didn't end up actually using the super art I equipped in Moonshine Mob, but it didn't matter in the end because I beat it anyways. Next up to the platter is Sheriff Winchester, and guess what? She's a plain boss, so we don't gotta worry about her. Just casually get an S on her and you're good to go. But in all seriousness, this boss literally isn't applicable to this challenge because she's a plain boss, so I set up a stipulation for this boss so that you have to get an S in order to consider her completed, since again, it's a damn plain level. Alright, from now on, we're going into uncharted territory, and by uncharted territory, I mean difficulty we've never seen before, and by difficulty we've never seen before, I mean the rest of the challenge consists of just ground bosses, so no more bricks in the way, it all goes down from here. And the first to make an appearance from this gauntlet of hell is none other than the Howling Aces in Doggone Dogfight, and let me tell you, this boss just absolutely destroyed me, not because of the difficulty, even though it was pretty hard, but the fact that me and my own chat didn't realize that I jumped multiple times in the final phase of the stream. I actually ended up catching that I had jumped while reviewing the footage after I finished the challenge. I had to re-record it after I had just been drained from the Saltbaker boss fight that we'll get into a bit later. But overall, this boss isn't terribly difficult once you really get the patterns down to a T, but of course, once you start out, it'll be pretty hard. The second and last phase is where most of the struggles are, because as I said in the beginning of the video, you need to preserve as much health as possible earlier on so you can finish out the boss fight in the final phase. But since the second phase is a little bullet hell section, it's pretty hard not to get hit since you can't jump, and there's a big chance that you either roll off the plane completely or you get hit by a projectile while trying to dodge another one. So what you want to do is have your first super art equipped and have it built up from the first phase to be able to get rid of the two of the jetpack dogs right off the bat, so it's not bullet hellish as it once was. But as you can see on screen, I didn't have the privilege of building up my super since I killed off the first phase quicker than you can say Glumstone the Giant, so I really did play this one in expert mode like it was meant to be played, but I ended up beating it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now regarding the last phase, you have to play this really carefully and use your super to your advantage, because I assume a majority of you are just like me and still haven't fully grasped the flip controls when the screen turns yet. So make sure to make use of the invincibility you get when you use the super, because unless you're somehow a god of those controls, you're going to need all the help you can get. Now I know you're asking, well, doesn't Miss Chalice have an invincible roll? Well, yes, but it still requires you to have a good grasp of the controls, plus a majority of the time you won't be able to completely dodge all the dog balls at the bottom since they come at two at a time on the same side at some points. So yeah, just use your super wisely and have basic knowledge of how to use the flip controls and you'll be fine. Up next is Mortimer Freeze, also known as by me as the Ice Witch. Now we all know how much of a dickhead this motherfucker is in expert mode and when you're playing it normally. Now just take that experience and dip it in some lava because you're in for a spicy one even though it's an ice setting. I'm not even going to go through the first phase because that plays out how it usually does as if you're playing it normally. It's just that you can't jump, and honestly jumping isn't even required in this phase anyway, so it's fine. But the main challenge lies within the second and last phase of the fight, where in the second phase the fucker becomes a genius and starts using combos and shit, where in regular mode he just throws attacks one at a time and waits for us to dodge. So the biggest pattern you want to look out for that will help you tremendously when completing this boss is when he turns into a fridge and shoots a couple of ice cubes, he will roll at you right away. At that point you want to bait the ice cubes to fall right in front of him by standing close to him and dashing away as the first ice cube is about to hit the ground. You then want to invincible roll through him when he rolls at you and dash again right away so you don't get hit with the remaining ice cubes that are in the area. You also want to stack up your super and use it the instant you get it so you have an extra hit instead of losing your actual HP. You also want to make sure that you have a few extra cards left over before the third phase, but make sure it's not 5 unless you already have your special activated. This is because, as you know, to actually arrive at the final phase you need to move up some platforms which would regularly require you to jump. This is where your supers come into play, and how much health you have at this point. When you get to this phase, you need to have all your HP still available. Yes, you heard me right, you cannot get hit once throughout this entire run up until the final phase. The only time you're actually allowed to get hit is when you have your special activated, which doesn't take away from your legitimate HP, and that's it. Also, the reason why I said you need at least one card built up at this point is because that's the way you're actually gonna get to the final phase. So what you're gonna want to do is use the crack shot special under the first platform and then dash parry so you're able to get up to the platform, since parrying actually lifts you into the air by a small amount. And as you guess, you're going to have to take one hit of damage while the screen moves up so you can actually make it to the phase, which is why you need all your health in the final phase, since now you're battling on 3 HP, which is basically Cuphead's original health. And yeah, that's about it. It's just the fight that's left and finishing off the boss. This fight is one of the more difficult ones, but honestly saying that doesn't mean anything because it gets way worse with what's up next. And you guessed it, it's Glumstone the Bloody Giant. I'm not even gonna waste time making jokes about the next 2 bosses, cause trust me, they ain't no joke. But now it's time for a full walkthrough of Glumstone the Giant. You ready? Let's go. When the fight begins, you have to know that at no point in time can you take more than one hit of damage before getting to the final phase, because at that point the fight will be impossible to complete because of the complete randomness of where the bone lands. So in the first phase, you cannot touch the ground because whether you like it or not, you will take guaranteed damage. The only way to get back up to the surface is by using the same trick I told you about in the Mortimer fight, using the crack shot special and parrying it to get back up. But it will result you in taking at least one hit of damage because you did after all fall off the platforms. And regarding the bear that he pulls out, since he brings it all the way across the screen, you need to invincible roll through it so you don't take any damage. This requires you to be on a platform on the same level or higher than the one to the left of you, since you need to roll behind the bear on the other platform. For the birds that he calls, just go on a platform that was just recently lowered and duck in case it decides to raise back up right away, which will most likely not be the case. And finally, for the potion portion, it's being able to dodge, so there's not really much to say about that. I know this is a lot for the first phase, but for this challenge, the first phase of this boss is a lot, so be ready for multiple retries because I have a lot of those under my belt. The second phase plays out just as normal, just try not to get hit because remember, throughout the first 2 phases, you're only able to get hit once so that you're able to complete the final phase. So unless you have 4 HP or the second super art activated, try your best not to get hit and utilize your invincible roll to the best of your ability. And now we get to the final phase, which is very nerve-wracking because at this point, all you have to do is not fall off the platforms and duck under the darts and you've won. I know me saying it sounds like nothing, but it really is a big challenge. Now regarding the randomness of the bones being thrown, just know that the max range you can get with your dash is 2 platforms. So you can actually hit the parry from 2 platforms away as long as you stay at the edge of the platform and then dash as seen on screen right now. But you will have at least 3 health at this point, so if you just stay calm and focus on yourself throughout this phase and let the crack shot do its work, you'll be able to finish this boss and complete Glumstone the Giant jumpless. Now folks, we have now reached the end game. We have gone through all the trials and tribulations all the way from Moonshine Mob to Glumstone the Giant and are now being faced with one final challenge. Chef Saltbaker expert mode without jumping. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a challenge not even the greatest Cuphead players would even dare to get roped into. And when I say that, that's a complete lie, because they probably would get roped into this, but just don't have the patience for it. But after spending approximately 12 hours, 55 minutes, and 56 seconds on this very challenge of attempting to beat Chef Saltbaker in extra mode without being able to jump, we're gonna figure out whether I actually did do the impossible in this video, or did I just clickbait you all. But before we get into the challenge, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video if you made it this far into the video, because I put a ton of work into these videos and this video absolutely drained me the most. So if you like this one, please consider subscribing for more content like this. And with that out of the way, let's get into if this is really possible or not. Before I break this down, I just want to say a couple of things you should know before you attempt this fight. At no point in this boss do you get a chance to rest. It is literally all action and you have to be on your feet at all times, which is what is so draining about this, because every single phase you need to have a strategy going into it, because if you don't, then you're kind of fucked. So I'm gonna walk you through each phase and let you know exactly what I did to get through them. And one more thing that you need to know before I get into this is that by the last phase, you need to literally have everything in your arsenal to be able to possibly beat this. What I mean by this is that you need to have 4 HP, which means you cannot get hit, your second super activated, and all 5 cards built up to be able to activate it again once you take damage in the last phase. But we'll get into this a little later when we do get to that phase. But for now, the breakdown. Let's go. The first phase is a whole beast in itself. You really need to have a good understanding about your surroundings in this phase. You need to know what's coming at you by either sound cues or seeing what is going on in the background, so you know ahead of time what attacks Saltbaker will be throwing at you. Throughout the first phase, the 2 flames that appear at the top of the screen will not be that big of a deal because you'll be able to dodge them easily with your invincible dash. But sometimes they'll be able to do damage to you if you do misstep, which is how you will take damage with everything incoming in this boss fight. You literally need to have the perfect run in this boss if you want to have any chance in beating it. Also in the first phase, you most likely will be able to build up enough cards for your super, so once you get it, activate it immediately so you can start building up your next one as soon as you can. But at any point do you lose your first super, it is fine, you can keep going to get another one. But if you manage to lose your second one, restart the fight because it isn't possible at this point. There's also a little glitch kind of thing with the limes. You can actually dash without crouching for the ones that are head level, but for the ones that are actually on the ground, you cannot dash regularly through. You actually have to invincible roll. But for the ones that actually come at head level, you can dash through instead of crouching. It's pretty neat. I found it out while doing this challenge. Just an extra tidbit. Alright, time for the second phase. This phase you want to be extra careful because at this point you don't want to lose any of your specials or HP whatsoever, because if you don't already have 5 cards built up by the time you lose it, it's game over, so be very cautious of this. The phase actually takes some strategy to beat it, so just follow on screen while I'm speaking. So as soon as you get into this phase, you want to instantly start shooting to the pepper on the left of you, making sure the shots hit directly onto it and don't crack so it kills it as soon as possible. You then want to move under the pepper on the top left and put as many shots into it before it shoots at you, and as soon as that happens, you want to roll to the right and do the same thing as you did on the left. Kill the pepper on the bottom and shoot as much as you can on the top and move back to the left. At this point, since the pepper on the top left is very low on health, once you kill the pepper on the bottom, the one on top will die instantly. You then want to do the same thing to the right and keep doing this pattern until the phase ends. Now keep in mind you're doing this while also dodging everything that's coming at you, so try not to rush this phase and really just take your time so that you don't take any damage spontaneously. For me, this is the third phase was the hardest to do because it's so easy to take damage here, and since you're already past the first phase, it just hurts even more to reset since you've just lost all that progress, all because you took one hit of damage. But speaking about the third phase, here's how you beat it. Once you get here, either of these two options will happen. The razor blades on the ground will either go towards you or away from you. If they move towards you, you want to roll out of them and then roll back into the middle until the salt clones come down, and do your best to dodge them until the phase ends. If the blades move away from you, you want to stay in the middle of them as long as possible until the clones come down, and once again dodge them until the phase ends. The reason I tell you to stay in the middle is because the clones will drop to where you were when they were thrown in the background. So since you stay in the middle, you're able to have freedom to dodge out of the way, since at this point the razor blades will either be as far away from you as possible, or you can roll through them depending on the way they move once the phase began. So with the strategy of that out of the way, let's get to the last and final phase and possibly the thing to kill this challenge, the heart. Now as you guys saw at the start of the section, I showed that the charge shot should be equipped going into this fight. Well, this is where it's going to be used. Now on my run of this, you can see that I do not have all my cards stacked at this point, but I was able to get all of them through this phase since you're able to parry your heart. But at this point, so that you don't get put in the same situation as me, you want to have all 5 cards already stacked by the time you get into this phase, along with having everything else. Now since you can't jump on the platforms in this section, you need to take fall damage and use your damage booster to get as high as you can so you can take as many shots at him with the charge shot as possible before taking another hit of damage, which at most will be able to take 2 shots before that happens. And in order to finish the boss fight off, you need to hit him 7 times with the charge shot. So you have to be accurate with your shots and hit basically all your shots while only being able to miss 1 shot to still make it possible. But that's the thing. Is it even possible to hit 7 shots on his heart with only 6 health and be as accurate as I say you have to be? Well, instead of using words to prove if it's possible, let me show you.
Yes! Yes! Oh my god! Yes! Oh my god! Yes! Yes! We did it!
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge is over. I myself did not think it was possible. I even was doubting myself at some point during my streams. But after 5 days of attempting this run, I finally managed to do it. I successfully beat Cuphead DLC in expert mode without jumping and proved that it is possible to do. I want to personally thank everyone that came out to the streams and supported me throughout this journey, because honestly, if I did this challenge without the stream, I probably would have had a mental breakdown. So I want to thank everyone that came out and interacted with me. You helped this challenge more than you think. Tomorrow I'll be uploading an uncut version of all these bosses done in this challenge, just showing the gameplay, so make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on so you don't miss miss out on that because this video was weeks in the making. So I truly hope you all enjoyed this video and at least found it somewhat interesting because I love doing this stuff. And as always, at the end of every single one of my videos, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you all next time.